Hello, it's Amber here with Heart and Soul Foot Zone Therapy, and today I just want to share part of my story of living with MS, and this has kind of come about. It's something that I've kind of has been coming up in my life in several different ways. So I've had a friend that asked if I minded if she shared that I had MS with someone that was recently diagnosed, and I had some mentors and some other friends that mentioned it was kind of like that third time's the charm. So I've had three different separate times when people have mentioned my MS or asked if they could share my story with someone else, and so that was kind of the thing for me that made me realize that maybe this is something that I do need to share. The fact that I have MS, multiple sclerosis, isn't something that I have kept secret or anything like that, but it's just not something that I often think about just sharing. It's not something hi, I'm Amber and I have MS when you first meet me, and so it's just something that I've kind of learned to live with. But through these opportunities and these experiences with my friends, I've realized that maybe my story might be able to help someone else. And when I first started thinking about this, I'm like, what does my story have to give? It's a pretty normal story of someone with MS, but maybe this is more just for me, or maybe this can benefit someone else out there or help them as they may be struggling with some of the same things that I struggled with. And so that's why I have chosen to share this today. So here's my story. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 22. And so we had our first baby, a 5-month-old baby girl, at the time that I was diagnosed. And so at that point, after I had her, I had started having some eye issues. And so that's how my multiple sclerosis was diagnosed. I had problems with optic neuritis, where I lost vision on my right side with my right eye. And so at that point, I went in for testing, and that's when plaques were found on an MRI that I had. And now I had problems when I was in high school. From the time, it was probably the first time I had problems, I was about 16, and had the same eye problems that I had when I was diagnosed, but the MRIs, everything like that were done at that time, nothing showed up on those. And so it was just something that they related to me having stress, which that year in school I had a lot of stress. I was in a lot of honors classes and things like that looking back may not be so stressful compared to the life now, but at that point in my life were very stressful things for me, trying to keep up good grades. I was a straight A student, and so trying to do that with my honors classes and those stresses. And so that's just what they related it to. I had some other problems year or two later, but I was trying to decide where to go to college, and so it was just always related to those stressful times in my life. And so and nothing showed up on those MRIs or testing that was done then. And so when I was 22, like I said, then that MRI did show those plaques, and so I was diagnosed with the multiple sclerosis then. So one of the things that we did that was had to choose what therapy to go on. At that time, the only options were options that were shots, and so started out with one that was a weekly shot. And now today there's lots of other options, orals and things like that, but at that time, this was in 2003, and so there was just several different options of shots at that time. So we started out with one called Avonex, which was a once a week shot. And for me, I'm a nurse, a licensed practical nurse, and so giving shots was how to do it and how to go about it. That wasn't new for me, but giving them to myself, now that was a little little different. And then my husband also learned to give me these shots. And so for him, that's definitely not something that is up his alley, not something he loves to do, but he still does it for me today. And we joke sometimes that that's what makes our relationship so good, is because, he can take his frustrations out on those times that he gives me those shots. But anyway, that's just kind of our joke. I think that's part of that has made living with MS is sometimes it may seem kind of weird, but just being able to joke about things like that, like giving the shots and stuff, has made living with it, at least for us, a little easier. Another one of our favorite, I guess, jokes with it is Alzheimer's kind of runs in my husband's family, and then of course I have MS, and so we say that as when we get to be old, that I'm going to have, my brain's going to be working okay, but my body's not going to function. And his body's going to be working okay, but his brain's not going to be working the best. And so together we're going to make a whole person. And we just hope that one day that he won't just push me in my wheelchair somewhere and forget about me. So, like I said, maybe kind of weird sense of humor, but sometimes that's what helps get through different things like this that happen in our life. But anyway, back to my story. So he learned to give me the shots, and that just became something that we did every week. And just kind of, there were some things in life that I thought were just kind of my new normal. Some of the tingling in my legs, things like that. Just things that I learned to live with. And the other main thing I had was just some fatigue issues. And so just kind of went with it and decided, these are things we could do. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, with multiple sclerosis, is it affects everybody a little differently. And so it's not one of those that you know exactly what's going to happen when or how long you may have of living really well or not. And so that unknown, I think, is one of the hardest things with this disease that you have to deal with. But so, time went on. There was times that I'd go off medication in order to have another pregnancy. With my pregnancies, I felt amazing through pregnancy, and did really well. Actually felt better at that time than I did not. It was nice to kind of be able to go off medicine and do things like that, and not have to worry about those weekly shots. But after I had my babies, that's when I would have problems. So had the second baby, and just like with the first, at 5 months, I had problems again. I had to go on steroids and things like that for a flare that I would have. And so we finally, after him, we had a third baby, and feel like we kind of got it right at that point. Didn't have problems at 5 months because I only breastfed for just about 6 to 8 weeks, and then went back on my medication earlier so that I didn't have those problems. And so just through kind of trial and error with my body, figured out what it was that I needed to help not have those issues after pregnancy. I would have regular MRIs, and I think after I'd been diagnosed for a while, I did have an MRI where there were changes on it, so decided the medicine wasn't working for me. So went on a different medication that was still a shot, and it was every day, and it was kind of awful for me. I didn't do very well with that medication, and it caused a lot of skin irritation and just large welts and things. Tried to stick with it. It was one that was supposed to be okay through pregnancy, and I was actually pregnant, and just finally decided it wasn't something that was working well with my body, and I was pregnant, and I always did so well before being pregnant. This was with our fourth child. And so just went off that medication while I was pregnant, and then after having that baby, did the same thing. Had about nursed for 6 to 8 weeks, and then went back on a new medication. And that medication that I went on then is actually the same medication that I'm on now. Has done really, really well for me, which is a 3 times a week shot. So still I'm with those shots, but it's what's working for me, and so I kind of hate to mess with something that's working well, even though now they have oral medications and things out. So that's kind of where I'm at now. But anyway, at this point in our life, we had a lot of changes go on. My husband, we decided for him to go back to school, and so in order to do that, we sold our house where we had been for the last 9 years, and our house sold really fast, which was good and bad, and so we were kind of displaced for this summer that we were at, and ended up being in a little 2-bedroom apartment with 6 of us. Had some good memories though, and as we transitioned to the new area where we moved for him to go to school. And so the next several years were quite stressful, but I had several things that happened to me during this time that really helped me out a lot. And so it was that these stressful times were when I would have the relapses or the flares that they call them, and I actually was introduced to some different things that I believe really helped me during this stressful time when my husband was back in school and we were moving and doing these things. And so actually not too long after we moved, he was going to school, and I was looking at some different things online and came across this class to learn about foot zoning, and it's not something I had ever really heard of or had the opportunity to do or anything like that. And just the way things worked out, how it was with my husband's school and work schedule, and it ended up that I was able to take this class. Things just fell into place. And so through this class, I got not only learning about foot zoning and how to do that, but I also learned some things about like magnesium therapy and things that really made a difference in my life. And so I learned about those, and through putting those into play in my life, doing magnesium foot soaks, also learning about an exercise called rebounding, which was one of the things that I had a difficult time with is exercise. I would get too heated up and then just feel awful. So, when you exercise, you think you do it so that you can feel better. Well, I would get heated up and it would be too much for my body, and I'd actually feel worse, and then spend days recovering from doing that. And so I kind of had to be careful about what I did, but I found this rebounding that was a great exercise that I could do without getting too heated up. The magnesium therapy and the foot zoning, as well as introduction to essential oils. And so all of these things that I was introduced to, I feel made it so I could deal better with the stressors in my life. And so like over that next 5 years, my husband was in school. We had a lot of different things like that. We added baby number 5 to our family. And we moved 3 times in a 14-month period. And so there was just a lot of things that normally would have set me off and caused flares or things like that. And so, and they didn't. In fact, so it's been the last five years, I have not had any changes on my MRIs. I've been doing well with the medication that I'm on. And those have probably been some of the most stressful times. I don't know about anybody else, but when you're in school and family and finances and all those stressors that get all added together, sometimes that's a lot to handle. But I have been doing so well, and I believe that's because of these things that I was introduced to, that I was able to put into play in my life, and has helped me have really probably some of the best health these last few years than what I had before. I've been a lot better, like as far as fatigue goes. I'm a mom of 5 very active kids, ranging in the age from 15 to 4, and so very busy lives and schedules and things, as trying to keep up with them as a mom. And it used to be, before I had these other things that I was able to do, the magnesium, the foot zoning, those things, that I would often feel like I just needed a nap just to get through the day. And there were quite a few times my husband would come home from work, and I'd be laying on the couch, and the kids were just kind of sitting around me playing, but just things that I just had to lay down to just even get kind of through the day. Now I do a lot better listening to my body. I'm not saying that I don't ever take a nap, because I do. But I try, it's not something that I have to do on a daily basis to keep going. But there's times when maybe I haven't slept as well, or my body's getting run down, but I try to do better at listening to those things, listening to my body, so that when I do need to take a nap, I do take the time for that most of the time. Not perfect at it, but I pay for it if I don't. So I try to listen to those clues that my body's giving to me when I need to do that. But because of those other things, I feel like I'm pretty stable where I'm at and doing really well. And as I was thinking about sharing my story, part of me, I'm like, why wouldn't I want to share this story with people if it couldn't benefit maybe even just one person out there? And part of it was, I think I felt a little guilty for doing well with having multiple sclerosis. Most people, when they think of multiple sclerosis, it's, they think of that person in the wheelchair, that person that used to be able to walk that can't anymore, or can't get around. And I think part of me was feeling this guilt because I'm living well with MS, and I realized that guilt doesn't do anyone any good. There's a great book by Brene Brown that talks about this, about the shame and guilt, and I just recently read that, and it just helped me put things in perspective. It's kind of like when people are pregnant and so many people get morning sickness, and I didn't, and I always felt bad telling anybody that had that's not something that I suffered with, and so it's kind of that guilt that came across. But I realized that guilt is not something that does us any good, and so I just wanted to kind of get past that. And like I said, maybe I'm just sharing this story just for me, but if even just one person can see this, or that maybe they're a young mother, newly diagnosed, or they've been struggling with some of these things, that maybe something in this video might give them hope, or be able to see that multiple sclerosis isn't just someone in a wheelchair, but can be someone that lives a good life despite having a chronic illness. And so I just want to leave these things with you, and like I said, hope that maybe sharing this can lead to even one person benefiting a little bit from the knowledge, or something that I said in here that may help them in their life, and to be able to, like I said, have hope, or recognize that they can live well despite having a chronic illness, whether it's MS or many of the others that people deal with on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for being with me, and I hope you have a beautiful day.